seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
In your face, all over the place. We're online 24/7. 24/7. You're listening to the hottest internet station.
From beautiful Saline in southeastern Michigan.
Around the world at sunsky.mysteries.com.
This is the 2009 Top 10 Webcam in the World winner. This is SETV.
Well, good evening, everybody. Bill Zam here. How is everybody doing tonight? We're putting the show on the air just a couple minutes early. Figured, what the heck. It'll be a big surprise when the viewers start tuning in. For those of you tuning in, maybe for the first time or maybe a long-time viewer, we are now broadcasting our show notes on the internet, so that while you have the show window open, because we now broadcast through a pop-up window, you can also have another browser window open, listen to the show, and be able to follow along with the show notes, because sometimes I skip over things here and there, and if you happen to be just joining us, you can go ahead and use the information that you see on your screen right now to log in to our screen. And we're going to see how this particular experiment works. You'll be able to see everything that I see on our audio server computer, including when I call up our recorder right here, so that you can see that I am recording the show right here. Let me turn up the volume a little bit more so that the MP3 that we have on the archive page sounds a little bit better afterwards, and we can check to see how many people are viewing our shared screen, and we're going to try that as an experiment and see if it works. We've been using it here in-house to go between the sound server computer and the broadcast computer. Now, I've noticed lately, before we get on to our first story, I've noticed lately that there are a certain lack of reports that seem to be coming from the government. They used to be very proud once a month when they gave us our unemployment results and reports on the economy and everything else to tell us how inflation was under control. Well, we don't have that anymore, and as most of you know, your prices are going up. January 1st, your taxes are going up too. Sorry for the bad news if you didn't know that, but if you're not paying attention, it's your own fault. I have here, right here, in my hands, this is a frozen chicken. I got it right out of the deep freeze earlier tonight. I am going to be making this roasting chicken this weekend. We're going to have roasted chicken and potatoes and all the fixings, probably some stuffing too, because what the heck, why not? This chicken right here, I got this chicken in 2011, March of 2011. Would any of you care to guess what the price per pound was on this chicken when I bought it in 2011? I'll let you go ahead and think for a moment. Hold on a minute. I should have some interesting music for you to listen to while we do that. I don't know if this is it or not. We'll see. can just imagine all of the keyboards right now doing Google searches on chicken prices per pound in March of 2011. So, have you thought up an answer yet? The price per pound, March 2011, for a whole chicken per pound was 39 cents. I dare you to go to the store tomorrow, after work, before work, whatever the heck you want, at your lunch, and take a look at what the price per pound for a whole chicken is. Anyways, tonight, on tonight's show, let's go ahead and call up the show notes on the broadcast screen for the viewers at home and on YouTube to see. Until yesterday, you probably never heard of a fella by the name of Senator Trey Gowdy. There's his website right there, Senator Trey Gowdy of South Carolina. If you follow the Tea Party news, you may have heard that he took a hit from the Tea Party during some debate or other that I didn't even bother to follow up on that because that's not what this story's about. But other than that, he's just another clown in a senate of clowns coming up with exciting new ways to ruin the country when the president isn't. And as a matter of fact, do you know how laws are made in this country? Here's what happens. Republican gets up and he says, I got a great idea. And then the Democrat gets up and says, yeah, and I can make that idea even worse. And that is how laws are made in the United States. Well, in this instance, the man did his town, this would be Trey Gowdy, the man did his town, family, constituents, and the entire country proud when he had just about enough of the crap spewing forth from the den of vipers working for our President, Nero Obama. You might have heard a clip here and there, but we have the entire audio for you, which will be available on the show notes page at ussamichigan.com, which is also where our broadcast page is, by the way. This is a slightly edited version to bring it to 3 minutes and 45 seconds, but we did not take anything out that detracts from the clip. And here, without further ado, is what Senator Trey Gowdy said yesterday in the United States Senate.
This administration blamed the murder of our ambassador and 3 others on a video. Don't take my word for it, Mr. Chairman. Let's look at what Ambassador Rice herself said. Our current assessment is that what happened in Benghazi was, quote, in fact, initially a spontaneous reaction. I don't know what the phrase in fact means in diplomatic legalese. I can tell you what it means in a courtroom, Mr. Chairman. It means it's a fact. And she went on national television and she said, in fact. And then she said she relied solely and squarely on the information the intelligence community provided. Mr. Chairman, I would like to have another hearing where we can ask Ambassador Rice under oath, who told you what when? You're going to blame the intelligence committee? You come before this committee and you tell us who told you it was a video. Who in the intelligence community said it? Who in the diplomatic community blamed this on a video? And then we move to Jay Carney, who's the spokesperson for the leader of the free world. This is what he said, Mr. Chairman. I'm saying based on information that our initial information that includes all information, we saw no evidence to back up claims by others that this was a pre-planned or premeditated attack. What we saw was evidence that it was sparked by the reaction to this video. And that is what we know thus far based on evidence, concrete evidence, close quote. Mr. Chairman, you know that in former life, I spent a little time in the courtroom. So when I hear the phrase concrete evidence, it means something to me. That's even stronger language than simply saying something is in fact. So 2 representatives of this administration gave demonstrably false statements, not just to us, but to our fellow citizens on national television. Now, is the explanation for those demonstrably false statements, as my colleague from Florida just asked, was it negligence? Was it just a reckless disregard for the truth? Or was it more nefarious than that? Mr. Chairman, the American people are reasonable. People understand investigations take time. People don't expect you to speculate until you have all the facts. What they will not forgive, Mr. Chairman, is being misled. We want our questions answered, and I want them answered by the people that went out before the American people and sought to mislead them by blaming this on a video when there is no evidence, concrete or otherwise, to support the assertions made by this administration. Mr. Chairman, I just had a conversation with Jason Chaffetz out back, and I hope he doesn't mind me saying this. He still gets emotional talking about what he saw in Libya. There were 4 brave Americans who died under circumstances that we can scarcely fathom. The terror, the fear, the anarchy of being killed in that fashion. They did what their country asked them to do. They stood post under dangerous circumstances even after requests for security were denied. They stood their post. The least we can do is stand this meager post that we've been assigned and demand that this administration speak the truth to the people it's supposed to serve. This was never about a video. It was never spontaneous. This is terror. And I want to know why we were lied to. And I yield back.
And that was a super audio clip from Senator Trey Gowdy. And if you... hold on one second here while I do this. There we go. That should be a little bit better for the audience. If you like what the guy said, send him a note. Go onto his Facebook page. Contact him. Get involved, like the website says. I think the guy did yeoman's work yesterday there in the United States Senate, and more than likely people will forget it within a couple of days. Now, our first story tonight involves something that I, and probably a lot of other people, find fascinating. Let me adjust our camera just for a second. Here, I had asked our director, Cat, if you had been tuned in during the pre-show. There we go. That's a little bit better. You would have seen our director, Cat, sitting on the set behind me, looking over the entire setup here. Our first story actually, comes from a friend of mine. His name is Jeff Westover. And he may be tuned in tonight. He may not be. This will be a big surprise if he isn't. He is going to be having a presentation, I believe, at someplace in Manchester. I'll get the information from him and I'll have it on the show. So if you're watching on YouTube or here in the Southeast Michigan area, you can go and see Jeff when he gives his presentation in a couple of weeks, I believe. At any rate, let's get over here to the show notes. Have you ever heard of the name Wendy Connors? Now, I am not familiar with her myself. I have done a bunch of internet searches over the past several hours looking for more information about her. But she apparently is pretty, at one time, or is currently, pretty famous in the UFO research community. In the late 1990s, she put together, as far as I can tell, a CD of UFO audio clips that includes interviews, news clips, and other information. Now, you don't see this very often in the days of YouTube. You don't see CDs and stuff like that for sale. You just have it on YouTube. And I don't know if she's still around or not. I found some references and web pages on the web that reference her. They don't look like they've been updated. The website that sold the CD, which is called Knight's Journey in Ufology. It appears to have been turned into a blog, and I can't find a purchase page anywhere for the CD anymore. So I don't know if she's still running the site. I don't know if the site's been taken over by somebody else. I don't know what happened. At any rate, the CD, as I said, was called Night Journeys in Ufology, and is not only hard to find. I can't find it on eBay. I can't find it on Amazon. I can't find it on Qubits. I can't find it anywhere. The site that used to sell it is a blog now, as I said before. However, through the hard work of my good friend Jeff Westover, a paranormal investigator. That's right, he's an actual paranormal investigator. If he's watching tonight, he's going to be going, "Oh God, no!" He's going to say it. No, Jeff, I'm not going to say it. However, the astute viewer, and if you're here in Southeast Michigan, Jeff does tours at the old Jackson Prison in Jackson, Michigan, where it is purportedly haunted. And Jeff has many, many instances and documentation of paranormal activity out there. In fact, I have heard that sometimes these spirits lower the ceilings so he hits his head repeatedly on doorways, and they throw bricks at him too. You'll have to ask him why they throw bricks at him. At any rate, Jeff Westover found this CD, and I happen to have a copy of it in my possession, and this is actually a great find. I have a copy of the CD here. You can find some audio clips here and there from this CD, but this CD, I have the printout here of all of the different files and whatnot that are on here. It goes on for pages and pages and pages. There's Dr. Hynek is on here. There's military people on here, people from Project Blue Book, people from various agencies. There's interviews after interview after interview on here, and an appreciable amount of it, and I haven't listened to the CD yet, so I can't tell you for sure, but I believe an appreciable amount of it relates to the big UFO brouhaha that we had going on here in Michigan in the late 1960s, and it basically follows it chronologically so that you, the listener, can follow along with about how all of this came about and how it all developed. And it's amazing how the disinformation came to be the main story rather than the real story of what people were actually seeing. Now, on to our next story. Christmas has come early for the telecommunications companies. That's right. The Christmas season has officially begun. Yeehaw! Let's head to the Walmart and pick up some ornaments. But not so fast there, bucko. The gift I'm talking about comes from the third leg of the axis of evil, the Supreme Court, who, in a giant decision, has given the citizens the old "your call may be monitored" recording soap in the shower routine. This story comes from The Guardian in the UK, and here is a image of the article right here. It is by Glenn Greenwald. Here is how the story goes. When the New York Times revealed on 16 December 2005 that the Bush administration was spying on the telephone calls and emails of American citizens without the warrants required by the criminal law, it exposed lawbreaking not only by the government officials, but also by the nation's largest telecoms. As citizens here in the United States, our memories have a tendency to be very short. We're a very forgiving country. As a society, we're very forgiving. So this is kind of gone out of everybody's brains. A lot of people don't remember this. The law they broke, of course, was the result of what happened during the so-called Church Committee hearings, which was looking at the abuse of powers. They found that the government abused its spying powers to punish and monitor dissidents. Those laws were expressly written to prevent telecoms from participating in illegal government spying. They were written with the full participation of telecom lawyers to ensure that the company's obligations were crystal clear. This, of course, was in the wake of Watergate and the entire mess that ensued from that little adventure in administration corruption. And I believe I have, hold on 1 minute here, and I don't have it. I have a page called up on Wikipedia about the Church Commission, which is, forget the exact name of the commission, or the committee, actually, but they wrote a law, and they forbid, it was against the law for the government or the telecoms to spy on American citizens without a warrant. And now the United States Supreme Court has just consecrated one of the most corrupt acts of the United States government over the past decade. Its vesting of retroactive legal immunity in the nation's telecom giants after they had been caught red-handed violating multiple U.S. eavesdropping laws. In case you don't remember, after 2011, the NSA, FBI, Department of Homeland Security, they were wiretapping. They were listening in on phone calls of American citizens. In fact, a lot of the telecom companies had a special room set up just for the government agents. It was illegal. It was warrantless. There was absolutely no law that allowed for it at the time. The Supreme Court on Tuesday forever precluded any legal accountability for AT&T, Verizon, Sprint, and other telecoms for their crucial participation in the illegal Bush NSA warrantless eavesdropping program. The Obama Department of Justice, needless to say, supports the position of the telecoms, and thus the Watergate fiasco has come full circle. Another lying administration, another quagmire of a war, another series of really, really bad domestic decisions. Let's hope we don't get Jimmy Carter next like we did back then. The article continues. When civil liberties groups sued the telecoms on behalf of their customers whose communications had been illegally accessed by the government, federal courts began ruling against the telecoms, holding that the immunity they already had under the law would be unavailable to them because the allegations against them amounted to knowing, deliberate violations of the law. One judge put it this way, quote, AT&T cannot seriously contend that a reasonable entity in its position could have believed that the alleged domestic dragnet was legal. Now, the problem that I have with this, and in my opinion, a lot of other people would have with this, is what in the hell is the Supreme Court doing? What are they thinking? They gave retroactive immunity to the telecoms, to Verizon, AT&T, and the rest of them, for breaking the law. Apparently, it's the bigger you are, the more you're allowed to do that's against the law. And the article concludes with this sentence, and I believe this is very telling to us, the citizens out in the trenches of hell, I guess is what we could call this now. But in the U.S., large and powerful actors must not be and are not subject to the rule of law. So telecoms hired former government officials from both parties to lobby from them. Let me ask you a question. Do you think it's possible that these former government officials from both parties to lobby for them, do you think that it's possible that pressure was put on the Supreme Court, the justices on the Supreme Court, behind the scenes, to make a decision in favor of this? I find that, if that's the case, and we don't know, if that's the case, that is one of the most disturbing bits of news that I have ever heard. And at the same time, very recently, it ain't over until Bin Laden is dead. Not so fast, bucko. President Obama has quietly extended the national emergency declaration 11 years after the 9/11 attacks. This comes to us from CNSnews.com. That's CNSnews.com. Obama quietly extends national emergency declaration 11 years after the 9/11 attacks. This is by Matt Cover, and it was published on October 10th, 2012 from CNSnews.com. 11 years later, President Obama has quietly extended the national emergency declaration first issued by former President George W. Bush after the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks on New York City and the Pentagon. The declaration, which has to be issued each year, invokes several wartime powers that give the president greater control of the military. Obama cited the continuing threat of terrorist attack in justifying his decision to continue the now 11-year national emergency. Now let me ask you a question. Isn't these the same clowns that told us that the Al-Qaeda is on its heels and is like done? That they are no more. That Al-Qaeda is like we've killed Bin Laden, we've decimated Al-Qaeda, and well, you know, it's time to take the victory lap. And now he's re-signing the national emergency. I'm just not buying that. Either there's something going on that they're not telling us, go figure, or it's a power grab. Who knows? Now, you know, after September 11th, that was a time, and this is how I view September 11th, and I think a lot of other people in the country do as well. If you're watching on YouTube, you probably think the same way that I do. And if you're watching live, you probably think the same way that I do too. After September 11th, this is a time in my life when I was recovering from a severe spinal injury from athletics, and I was relearning how to walk, and it was a very tense time for me personally, as well as what happened on September 11th. I was home. I was in bed. I was essentially bedridden at the time. I could only walk a limited distance. And, you know, I saw the September 11th attacks. I saw the aftermath of it. I watched the whole thing. It was a very, very, very bad day, especially if you were witnessing it live, either in person or on the television. After the attack, I was talking to two of my neighbors. They are Korean War veterans. They're in their 70s now. And we were outside. I was outside by the mailbox, and I was getting my mail. And I was looking up at the sky. Not a plane in the sky. I can't remember a time in my life when I haven't looked up and seen contrails from airplanes. And my neighbor was standing there, and he goes, "That's really frightening to see that, an empty sky." And I agreed with him. And then after a couple of days, maybe probably 3-4 days afterwards, I was going stir crazy here in the house, and I decided to go out and get some groceries. And while I was getting the groceries, I was on my way to get the groceries, and a fire truck, a Saline Fire Department fire truck, was coming down Michigan Avenue in Saline, heading east. What I saw was absolutely invigorating. It was spiritually gratifying as an American to see what I saw, because this fire truck was coming down the road. People were literally running in the curbs, getting out of the way of this fire truck. I think it was probably September 13th or 14th. And I'm looking down Michigan Avenue, and as far as I can see, people are turning on their headlights that far away. You can barely see them, and they're pulling over. And people got out of their cars. And I think we have lost that as a country, because this reissuing of this emergency powers thing. I mean, tell us why. Don't do it quietly behind closed doors. Either the war on terror is over and we've decimated Al-Qaeda, or the war on terror is continuing. Which is it? You gotta tell us. Stop being dishonest with us. What did that senator at the beginning of the show say? Stop lying to us. Just tell us the truth. We're big boys and girls. We're adults. We are the ones who are in charge. We are the citizens. The government operates at with our blessing. And they just don't seem to realize that anymore. In fact, because of September 11th, right here behind me, you see behind me, this scale fire truck that I have right here. This is a 1/8 scale fire truck. It is a hook and ladder. It is actually a remote control model. The lights and everything light up, and it squirts water, and the sirens go, and everything. This is a New York Fire Department snorkel truck, engine number 1. And that's why that fire truck is up there, and it's on the show every night. Now, let's go on to a story that, well, it's not much better than the last story. It's the October surprise, or crap, that energy costs necessarily skyrocketing deal backfired. In a disclosure that could keep gasoline prices at high levels for months to come, Chevron said Tuesday that the crude oil unit damaged in the August 6th fire at the energy giant's Richmond, California refinery will remain closed through the end of the year. The unsettling disclosure was made as part of Chevron's interim update on its earning results. The Richmond crude unit is expected to remain offline through the fourth quarter of 2012, Chevron said. Now, this is obviously the refinery in California, and it's part of the reason why the refinery, why the gasoline prices in California have skyrocketed so very, very high. I know what you're saying to yourselves. You're saying to yourselves, Bill, how is that possible? Can't they produce gasoline? Well, the necessary permits will take until the end of the year, causing the price of gasoline to necessarily rise. Now, to be honest, these permits are from Richmond, California. They're permits from the city. However, you know damn well that they have to fall in line with EP regulations. The San Ramon-based Chevron has operated the Richmond refinery at about 60% capacity since the fire. The crude unit is considered to be the heart of the refinery because it distills crude oil into fuels such as gasoline. The United States refinery crude input volumes have decreased by 92,000 barrels a day because of that particular fire. And here is the Wikipedia page about the Chevron Richmond refinery out there in California. It's a 2,900 acre facility. It is a petroleum refinery. in Richmond, California, on the San Francisco Bay. It is owned and operated by the Chevron Corporation. You can see a photograph with the marshes of the refinery. And I believe farther down here there might be some more photographs of the refinery. Yeah, there we go. You can see the smoke from the fire itself right there on the screen. Some photographs there. This is at wikipedia.com. This is the page about the refinery. The refinery was established several years before the city of Richmond was incorporated in 1905. This refinery has been there since before the city itself, since 1905. This refinery has been there. That's pretty something. And here is the original article from the Richmond Confidential about Unit Number 4 and what they've done in California there. What I think it's the legislature that did it. They have okayed the refining of winter blend gasoline in California, which should bring the gas prices down 15 to 20 cents. So it's only going to be like $6.75 a gallon for gasoline in California. Imagine how much that produce that's produced and grown in California. Imagine how much that produce is going to start costing. All those fruits and vegetables and stuff like that, because they gotta fuel up the trucks before they can leave California. Imagine how much your food prices are going to necessarily skyrocket. Now let's go on to it's actually our last story tonight, and it is about the events in Louisiana that I have been harping on incessantly. No, I can't say that because then I'll lose all of the female viewers. I have been talking about it incessantly, like a cat crying and whining for a hug. That's or a dog that wants to go outside for a walk. Yeah, like that. That's how I've been harping on this. The methane is leaking from the ground down there. And actually, this story, believe it or not, this story actually comes with its own theme song. I almost forgot.
Come and listen to my story about a man named Jed. A poor mountaineer barely kept his family fed. And then one day he was shooting at some food, and up through the ground come a bubbling crude oil, that is.
And that is the theme song because the news is so bad, only gallows humor can save this story. In what sounds like a plot from one of those 1990s disaster movies where the hero keeps telling the community and the government that something bad is going to happen. Yes, it is, and no one listens until the whole thing blows up. You guessed it, they're planning on starting what's called flaring the gases coming from the giant sinkhole in Louisiana, in Assumption Parish. As you all know, there is methane bubbling up out of the ground all over the place down there, and they're going to light a fire. And nothing good's going to come from this, I can tell you that right now. Assumption Parish residents, dozens reporting sicknesses and showing signs of poisoning, are bracing for the Shaw Group, contracted by the Louisiana Department of Natural Resources, to begin flaring natural gas from 2 relief vent welds at the Bayou Corn sinkhole site as early as Friday. But scientists say those fires will not impact the nearby methane gas percolating in over 20 places. Yeah. The gas from 2 wells at the Bayou Corn sinkhole disaster site will be flared through a single portable flare as early as Friday, according to officials Tuesday night at a government briefing. And the story comes to us from TheExaminer.com. TheExaminer.com. And this story is brought to us, is written by a lady who is a human rights reporter. I forget exactly what her name is. And the article is at examiner.com. And of course, in our show notes, we have a multitude of links. Let me bring up the links for you, because this is actually, despite the humor, the gallows humor of the theme song that I had for this is actually an extremely serious situation. Over here at ENENews, enenews.com, that's enenews.com, oil is now, a sheen of oil is now covering the sinkhole area. Louisiana Commissioner of Conservation James Welch said today that detailed comparative analysis has revealed that the liquid hydrocarbon from the failed Texas brine cavern and samples from the nearby sinkhole slurry area strongly indicate that both are naturally occurring crude oil. In other words, there is a pool of crude oil naturally occurring in the sinkhole somewhere inside these salt domes, and it is now coming to the surface like a bubbling crude. While our ongoing review of operational records on the Napoleonville Salt Dome has not shown one single underground source known to create diesel fuel, that is not correct. Because there was one of these salt domes that was filled with some type of sludge, and I forget what it was, but it was when this story was first developing. What they do is when they fill up these salt domes with byproducts, say used fracking fluids, for instance, they always put usually diesel fuel in the salt domes, because as that liquid fills up the salt dome, the diesel fuel prevents the salt dome from decaying from the water, from melting, if you will, dissolving in when it's exposed to the other fluids. So they put the diesel fuel in there, they fill the thing up, and it keeps the salt dome from collapsing, creating, you guessed it, a sinkhole. At any rate, this particular story talks about the hydrocarbons that they found there. The next story talks about the crude oil maybe penetrating the aquifer. Contamination of aquifer is certainly being looked at. And that was Gary Hecox, geologist with Shaw Environmental. And another story about the sinkhole is right here, again from the same website, a company meeting, and we don't know how we're going to stop the crude oil from coming to the surface. And they're turning to international experts for help. And apparently this is an excerpt here from the latest news conference. If crude oil is coming from this is the question, if crude oil from the natural source, from one of these three layers, how can you possibly stop? Eventually it would get. The question is, here's the answer from the official, the question is, the crude oil that's possibly coming from one of these individual layers from outside the area of the salt dome, how to stop it from entering the salt cavern, I'm assuming, and as well how to stop it from coming to the surface. And Gary Hecox, the geologist with Shaw Environmental, said, I can't tell you how we're going to stop it right now. So, the oil is coming up. This is a massive, massive problem. You've got this massive sinkhole. You've got these salt domes that are flooding with water. Now there's oil leaking into the salt domes. How are they going to get down there to stop this oil from leaking in? They certainly can't use a cement plug, because they need a cement plug, about 4 acres in diameter now. It's just simply not possible. So this is a environmental disaster in the making. The mainstream media, of course, is not bothering to cover it. Go figure. So that was the show for tonight. Certainly hoped you enjoyed it. and I am going to continue thawing out my 39-cent per pound whole chicken that I bought in 2011. I think it's my last one, too, in the freezer. I might have to break down and buy a few at the new, normal, higher prices. Because don't forget, prices have to necessarily skyrocket so that we can all suffer. That's part of the deal. We all have to suffer. At any rate, my name is Bill Zam. Thank you for showing up. We certainly appreciate you coming to see the show. And the show notes that you've been seeing on the screen, and if you're watching the streaming screen, then you can then you can come to the site and you can actually see and read the show notes and use all the links and everything and download all the files and everything that you find through the links. So my name is Bill Zam. Thank you for stopping by tonight, and we will see you probably tomorrow night. Have a good evening.